Hello everyone, so very good morning. So we'll start now. Okay. So in previous sessions, what we have done, so we discussed about the streaming option. So change data capture. Okay. So now, so today's sessions we'll discuss about how to work with the cloning option. So before going to clone, so when we are working with time travel, so we use the clone option, right? So when you want to create a new table, and at the same time, so when you are creating from temporary table to transient table, so we have worked with a clone option. We have used a clone. So and instead of creating table as everywhere, we are using clone option. So what is the advantage of this? The main intention behind we are using a clone, it's a very the best future in Snowflake. So what it will do is, instead of occupying the storage, it is going to distribute the storage of the original table and the another table, the table which we have created. It means nothing but a cloned table. Cloned table will always, it will point out the storage from original table until unless if it changes. It means, let me show you something here so we can able to understand very easily. Now observe this. Let's assume that this is your original table. It can be a database, or it can be a table, or it can be a schema, whatever it may be. So we can clone database as well as schema as well as table also. So now, so when you are cloning, see this one, once it is cloned, this is your cloned table. This is your cloned one. So once it is cloned, what will happen is the metadata will be shared. Meta for this particular table, it will not actually utilize the storage. It will not occupy additional storage. For example, this is 1 GB. So if you clone another table, the same table in other like traditional databases, what will happen? If it is 1 GB, the same data, if you create another table, if you copy into another table, or if you create a duplicate table, whatever it may be, again that also it will occupy. So another, right? So instead of that, the option here is they came with a clone. This one, what it will do is it will share the micro partition. So that micro partitions, how it will be, how the partitions will work, we will see that in the next sessions. Now, remember what it will do, it will share the micro partitions, and so all the metadata will be shared into this table. Then what will happen is, so for this particular storage, it will not occupy additional storage space. Always if you fetch anything from this clone table, always it will point out the original storage. So this is logically exist, but physically, so everything, so it will get it from this particular cloned one. So from where it has been cloned. So now, so what is the biggest advantage of this? If you observe, see this one, so we can take a snapshot of this particular table anytime. So for example, okay, in any project, you may observe you will have so development environment, right? And then test environment. At the same time, you will have production environment, right? So development, QA or test or production. Sometimes some projects you may not have so production environment, sorry, test environment. So they will test everything in a development environment only, and then they will create a, so instead of test or production, so they will create a, instead of test directly they will move it to the production. They will do all the testing in the development environment only. Now in this particular account, if you observe, this is our account, right? Let's assume that whatever we have created in this particular database, this class database, let's assume this is completely development environment. Now, if you want to give it for the testing purpose, so whatever the tables we have created here, the schemas, going forward, we will create schema and then pipes, snow pipes, and all these things. So when you create, so these things, if you want to give it for the testing purpose, then we cannot allow the testers to so do the testing in this particular database, right? Then what you will do? you will create another database and then you will give it for testing, right? So there is two options. In some organizations, they will create a separate account. This is one account, right? Like this, they will create separate account for test and then production environment. In some organization, based on the requirement, so they will create within the same account, they will create separate database like we have the class database, right? Same way, so they will create another database. For example, let's assume that this is a dev database class. We have created class, right? So this is dev database. They will create another database class. So for the test, class underscore test. For the production, so they will create another database class underscore production. So everything will be within the same account only, within the same account. It depends. Now, already whatever we have created, if you want to move it to the test environment or production environment, then what we have to do? So generally, so we have to again export and then import, right? When you are doing that, so it will take time, right? So you are going to export this general, so thing is you are going to export all these things in XML or some other file format, and then again you have to import. Instead of that, here what we can do is, so just we can simply we can able to use a clone. When you use a clone, what will happen is whatever is available here in this particular original database, when you are cloning as a class test database, everything whatever is available here, it can be tables, schemas, it can be a stages, all file formats, and then if you have pipes we will discuss going forward, and then tasks, and then streams, everything whatever we have created here, and everything so will come to another database. It will be completely, it will be cloned. So not only the table, not only the so schemas, everything resides in this particular database. Everything will be cloned, other than other than temporary table, other than temporary table. Just remember this. So you can, so when you are cloning the database, everything will be cloned, but not temporary tables. If you want to do a temporary table, you need to do individually. So other than this, remaining everything will be cloned. Once it is cloned, so let's say simple example. So you have, for example, uh, we will have one, let's say you will have a one word document. You prepared your CV. Let's assume that you prepared your CV. This document is available in D drive. Okay. Now you have copied this document from D drive to E drive. The same document you have copied. This CV you have copied to your E drive in your laptop. From what you have done, one drive to E drive, you have copied to one drive to another drive, or you have copied to, let's assume that one folder to another folder, whatever it may be. Once you have copied, this is your original one, right? This is your original one. This is your copied one, right? Now, if you do any changes to the original one, this one, if you do any changes for your original document, is it going to impact on your copied one? No, right? The same way, if you do any changes for the copied one, is it going to impact on the original one? No, right? So both are individual, right? Both are work as a individual. Same way here also. So once you have copied, once you have cloned, so from, so it can be a database, it can be a table, it can be so schema, whatever it may be. So both the things will work individually. If you do any changes for the copied one, it is not going to impact on the original one. It will not impact on original one. If you do any changes for the original one, it is not going to impact on the copied one. But so one problem here. So what we discussed, so we said that so both the things, so a cloned one, it will not occupy a storage. Always it will point out the original storage. right? Always it will point out to the original state. If you observe here, see this, all the micro partitions in the both the tables are fully shared, right? And then so micro partition storage is owned by the oldest table, means nothing but your own table, your original table. Cloned table, it references them, always it references them, right? Suppose once it is cloned, if you done any changes like this example, I have edited something, I have added some more points here, then it is not going to impact on this, right? Then so how the storage so will be so occupied here, when it is coming to any changes, only the changed portion storage data will be so responsible for the cloned table, only the changed portion. So let's assume that already we have so 1 GB it is storing. So now so we have inserted some records into any specific table, for example 2 KB or something, or you created a new table in this cloned database. Then only for the two so cloned database, whatever the so table you have created, let's assume that so 100 KB or so so 500 KB, whatever it may be, that particular thing is responsible for this cloned one. So for that, it will be charged. Remaining everything will be so from the this particular storage. We will see that. And so if you observe, see this, no additional storage cost until the changes are made to the original or cloned table. So this one, if you made changes to this one, so particular cloned one, so it is not going to impact on this. So this one, when you do the changes, so this particular thing will not be available here. So both will work individually, right? And if you do some changes here, so it is not going to impact on this. So both, so the storage will be different, and we will use these things oftenly. So this one, so spin up dev to test environments. Dev and test environments means nothing but what we have discussed here. Dev to test environment, instead of like doing exporting and importing, and then instead of creating again, if you want to create, so generally what will happen, the dev environment we will not give it to the testers, we will not give the access to the testers, because we are doing some development. If they are coming and then if they are doing something, so then the results will not be appropriate. Then what we will do, we will create a separate environment for them. Now the environment means nothing but, don't get confused, so like the same database, we will create another database here with the same copy of the data for the testing purpose, right? So to do that, again, so here we created a table, we created stages, we created streams in this database, we created tasks in this database, right? Everything, if they want to test, again, no need to create a database, again, no need to create these tables, all the tables, again, no need to create, so all the so streams and then tasks. So just simple cloned, everything will come to the another environment. Everything will come to another environment by using simple clone option. Let's see that how it will work here. Now first, so we'll see. So what we discussed, temporary table. Let's create a temporary table in the database, and then after that we will clone. Temporary table will not be cloned, right? When you are cloning any database, temporary table will not be cloned. Now here we are in the class database and then public schema, class database and public schema. If you observe, all the transient tables is available here. Let's create a temporary table. Here we are creating a temporary table just to see whether temporary table can be cloned or not. Now we are inserting some data into this table. Now we have a temporary table here. If you observe, see this one, this icon represent temporary table, right? Temporary table, transient table, and then we have some schemas, and then we have some so the tables and everything. So now, so if you observe, show streams, we have streams, right, in this particular database, and at the same time, so we have tasks, right? Show tasks, we have tasks here, right? And everything is available, okay? And then we have some tables and then some schemas, everything here. Now if you try to clone this particular database, the complete database, So now what we can do is, so we can simply use a clone option. Okay, so we'll do that so later. So clone option. So now observe this one. And use create or replace database. Instead of this, I will use class test. Class test. Clone from class. Now observe this. What we are doing, we are cloning, we are creating a new database, class test. This is for assume the test environment. And then cloning from where? This original database. Cloning from this database to this particular clone. This is your original one. This is your cloned one. Now observe this, when you are cloning, it is going to completely clone the database. So it means schemas, tables, and everything resides that particular so database. Now if you observe, generally it's complete database, right? Okay, it's running. It will take some. Just observe this, how much time it is going to take. It's very simple. So within the one command, so you are creating the complete copy of the another thing. Now it's created. If you refresh it, see this one, another database, right? Now if you observe this, the same copy. So we have a so schemas, all the schemas. We have a tables. Now observe one thing here. So what we discussed, the temporary table cannot be cloned. Temporary table cannot be cloned when you clone database or when you clone your schema. That is not possible. If you want to do it separately, you can able to do that. You can do it individually. You can able to so clone the temporary tables. That is possible. But so when you have a temporary table, when you are cloning the database or when you are cloning your schema, it will not be cloned. Now observe this one, right? Everything came here. Now we are in class test and then public, right? Class test database and then public. Now here also, if you observe the streams, whatever we have created there, it is available. If you observe the tasks, everything will be available here. It's exactly the same copy of your original database. Other than, so it will only, the thing is temporary table only for the session, right? So and so that is not required. Now one more thing, if you do any changes, what we discussed, if you do any changes for this cloned one, it is not going to impact on the original one, right? So now let's say, so we have in EMP, this is your original table. We have 8 records. This is your cloned table, sorry, cloned database and then clone table. So here also we have 8 records. If I do some changes for this, now let's check the data. Here we have some data, right? Now I will delete some records from the cloned one, delete from EMP. Now we are in the clone database and then clone schema, where EMP ID, we will take any ID and then 1001, 1001. Now when we are deleting, so two number of records deleted, 2 records deleted from the 8. Now observe this, from where we have deleted, from the cloned database, from the cloned database, cloned table. Now observe this, so let me refresh it here, refresh it. Now observe how many records we have there in this EMP. See this one, 6 records. We have 6 records here. Now observe your original table. Now this is your original table, right? So original database and then original table. Observe this. Is it reflected here? No, right? So now suppose if you drop any table here, so the same thing. So it will be available here in your original. If you do something here, for example, so let's connect to original database class and then public. Now we are in class and then public. So let me drop some table from here. This is a new. So let me drop it. Drop table. We are dropping a table. So the table is dropped from original database. New table is not available here. Now if you check your cloned one, now observe this, cloned one, it is still available, right? still available, right? So now, so what we discussed here, okay, if until unless if you do any changes, now this is always it is pointing to this one. So we will see that. So where you can able to see that how it is pointing out to the original one. But now what we have done here, so from this particular database, we dropped a table. We dropped a table. This table, it is not available here in this database, but in the cloned one, it is available. Then, so cloned database is the responsible for this storage now, because this storage, this table itself, it is not available here, right? So when you do any changes for this cloned one and then original one, so based on the changes, so these particular changes only, so it will be the storage will be occupied in this particular table. Now this storage is occupied in this so particular database. This is the responsible for that. Now, so if you observe, so how the things will work in the backend. So how it is sharing. So now let's observe this. And the schema on table, when you clone schema on table also within the schema, whatever is available, everything will be cloned. It can be anything. Now, if you observe, let's finish this one. This way, so that if you create any like a table, and then it will not be reflected in the other database. Now what we discussed, temporary table, when it is coming to temporary table, it will not be cloned. If you want to temporary table specifically, then individually we can able to clone. So let me here now, so we have a temporary table here, right? So we need to clone this. If you want to clone that, what we have to do is, let's keep the same thing, data replace temporary, have to give temporary table name. Let's give, so what is the temporary table name here? Employees temp. We'll take the same table, employees temp, clone from, so which database it is available. So from this particular database, so to where we have to clone, so we have to, so create this in class test, right? Class test, and then public. So in this database, in this schema, so this is the table. So cloning from, so from this database, this particular schema. So and then, so what is the table name? This is the table name. If you do this, then we can able to clone only the temporary table. If you want to do a temporary table, you need to do individually. Okay, so always remember this. Now, when you observe this here, see this one. So when you do
Dinesh,
this, what will
I
happen
have a
here?
Dinesh, I have a quick
Y- y-
question for you.
Yes, please tell me.
So we are talking about cloning, right? Now, in
Hmm,
what is the major difference? Like even in a
hmm,
traditional database like Oracle, we can clone, correct? We can clone an entire database.
hmm,
So what is
hmm,
the difference or advantage or a difference between, say, cloning an Oracle database versus something in Snowflake?
hmm.
That's my main question.
Okay, so we discussed that. So here in Oracle, so let's assume that what it means by the cloning. Cloning is different. So here the
Copy,
concept of the
yeah.
cloning is different.
Okay.
Copy, right? So when you do that copy in your system also, if you do copy, for example, we discuss this example. So for example, this drive. So for example, let's assume that this CV is 1 KB. Again, what will happen if you copied into another drive? Again, it will occupy 1 KB, right? In the both the places, it is occupying the space for the same data, right? But when you are using a clone option here, it will not occupy the, for the cloned one, it will not occupy the storage. That is the main advantage of the cloning here. Okay.
Then how will it keep the data? Because the idea of clone is to either get a copy for yourself for storage
Hmm.
purposes or backup purposes,
Hmm.
whatever, right? If he's not going to,
Hmm.
I mean, how is that he will not be occupying space then if data is a part of
It will
it?
not occupy space. Now observe this. So it is going to share the micro partitions from the backend. Always it will point out to the original table, even though when it is, so logically it is separate, but physically, so it is going to occupy the original. Always it will point out to the micro partitions only. Okay, that is the back end how it will work. I will show you the things when we are working with the partitions. Partitions, I will so give you the information how the partitions will be created, how the each and every micro partitions will be available.
So is this
Okay,
some
then
kind of an advantage? I mean, that
yes,
Snowflake doesn't want us to worry about the storage because you're not going to charge us, that's all.
exactly.
But in
So whatever
in
the
in
mm,
reality, they will be storing, right? Because if we lose one thing, then we lose the other thing also if we are pointing to the same data set, correct?
no, no, no. So when you are doing something, any changes, for any changes, what we discussed, whatever the thing, for example, if you delete something from here, okay, but it is available here, for that they will be charged. And so for example, if you created some additional extra things here, so new table or the new schema, so then that will be charged from this particular database. Okay, whatever is available in the both the places, for that always it will point out from the cloned one, which is
Oh,
not
okay,
available
okay,
here, which is available here, then this is the responsibility of the cloned one.
okay,
Okay,
okay.
that is the difference. Okay, now so let's come to this. So when we are creating, so this we are creating for the temporary table. So now syntax class test. So let me, what is the database here? Class test, and then public, and then this is the table. So here we are trying to create a table clone from this particular. This is from, let me give the complete class public. So this is our, so from your, so original, so database, original temporary table. So from this temporary table, we are trying to create a, so temporary table here. If you do that,
The temporary table, then we need to write table.
yeah, correct. Thanks for that. Temporary table, and then, so we are giving. Now observe this, it has created. So what it means by that? So when you are doing this temporary within the database or within the schema, it will not be allowed. So if you are doing individually, then individually whatever it is required. So what is the main intention of temporary? So this is for just for the session, right? It is not required. Then so when we are cloning, so always when the database you may have so some temporary tables. In the schemas also you may have some temporary tables. If it is not required, so no need to like copy that. That's why so they will avoid these temporary tables cloning. If you want individually, so you can able to so do this. And so now, now let's see so how we can able to check so where this details will be available, how this is the storage is. So storage metrics we can able to see that that will be available in. So now if you observe information schema, now so what is the table here? The table is, so let's take any table from the both the databases. This is our original database, this is our clone database. Now let's take from this employee three records, employee three records, or let's take any some more records. Okay, let's take this emp, table name emp here, emp table, and this is available in class database public schema, right? Now when you check this information from the storage metrics, Now, if you observe one thing, clone group ID and then original ID. Observe this, clone group ID and then original ID. And when it is occupying the storage, you can able to see active bytes here. See this one, active bytes here, you can able to see that. And so this original ID cloned group ID is same, means this is your original table. This is your original table. And then when you have an active bytes, it is storing some data. The storage is occupied for this particular table, from this database. Now when you observe, and then remaining additional information, you can able to see that. So when it is created, and if you come to the cloned one, this cloned one also same table we will take, emp table, and then this is from class test. This is the database, right? And then public schema. And so now just observe this. Now observe the details for the clone group ID, original ID. See this one. What is the clone group ID? The previous ID which we have, which it is displayed here, right? So 1028. So let's check again. So 1028. So this is the clone. This is the original clone group ID. What it is telling for this particular EMP table. So this is the ID. This one is cloned from this particular ID. So this ID where it is available, this is available in your original database, right? When you see that cloned group ID and then ID is different, then we can consider this is a cloned one. Now, if you observe, see this one active bytes, this is 0, but still you can able to see the data here, right? But so what it is only active bytes, still it is 0. But here, if you observe in this particular thing, this is your original storage matrix. Now observe this. Here if you observe, the ID, cloned group ID, both are same, 1028. It means this is your original table. And then you can see the active bytes, right? So always in the back end it will work. So like this. So that's why every time when you are using, so if you remember, so when you are working with, so this one, so time travel, what we have done, so we are using a clone option instead of, so when you want to create a table for the, so before any timestamp, so we are using clone option, right? And at the same time, so when you create a temporary table to, so this particular thing, so for example, if you want to convert that this particular temporary table to, if you want to create from this table as a transient table, always we are using clone option. And at the same time, if you want to create a backup tables, we will use a clone option. And so generally what will happen is, so let's assume that this is, so very, so most frequently we will use this one. What will happen is, you will have, let's assume that you will have a production table. Okay, you will have a production table, and then this is around, so let's take any GB, 1 GB or 50 GB, whatever it may be. We have some data in the production table. Now if any user or any business, based on the business requirement, they want to do some changes on the production table, right? If they want to do it, then what we have to do, in general scenario, we will not do any changes directly on the production table, right? What you have to do, you need to take a backup for this particular table, right? When you take a backup for this particular table, so it will be, for example, let's assume that prod underscore backup table. So always production tables will be, it will be a huge volume, right? Huge volume. Then when you take a backup into your like a test environment and dev environment, again it will occupy a storage, right? After that, you are going to do some changes on this. So then, so for example, so you will implement changes on the backup table. Once it is implemented, what we will do? We will do the validation. Once the validation is done, then this, whatever the changes we have done here, these changes need to be, you need to move to the production table, right? So in place of this production original table, you need to point out this particular table, right? In this particular situation, what we can do is instead of taking a backup, instead of creating a dummy table like a duplicate table, we can use a clone option here directly from the production. The same copy it will be available always. So from where it is fetching the information, always it is fetching the information from the production table only. And at the same time, so it's when you are doing the changes, implementing the changes here, it is not going to impact on this one. So once the changes is done, once the validation is done, so then you can replace the both the tables. That is nothing but a renaming, right? Renaming. When you are renaming, what we will do, so generally we have a swap option here in our Snowflake. We have swap option. Swap means what it will do is, if you observe here, let me show you. We are in class database and then public. Okay, so here we have 8 records. In employee table we have 3 records. Here if you observe in employee emp table we have 5 columns. Here in employee we have 3 columns, right? When you do swap in between these two things, what will happen is the namings will interchange. It means the in place of emp employee will come, and structure and data, whatever these available in emp, the structure as well as data will come to employee, and then whatever the structure and then data is available in employee will come to emp. That is a swap option. So generally instead of renaming and then again so creating the multiple backups, so what we can do is just simply we can use a swap option. When you use a swap option, automatically it will be interchange. Otherwise what will happen, if you want to rename a table, some table, let's assume that have a production table. First step what we will do, we will take a backup of this production table. We will take a backup. Then after that we will do changes on this particular table. So after changes implemented, so then we need to so create this production backup table as a this table. Again what you will do, again you take another backup of your the latest version, right? So with, for example, with the date, let's say for example, so 24 12 21, with the date you will take a backup. Then what you will do, this particular changes, this particular table need to be created as a production. This is the backup of the production table, now the latest version. This table again you need to rename it to original production. These are the multiple steps you have to do, right, when you want to rename it. So instead of that, what we can do is we can use simple swap option. Now just observe this, how easy it is. So instead of so renaming and then recreating, so we have a emp and then employee. Just observe in emp table we have 8 records, right? And then how many columns we have in emp table? We have 5 columns. 5 columns. And employee table we have 3 records and then 3 records, 3 columns. This is the details. Now when you use swap, observe this emp swap with employee. Now what we are using the keyword, just we are using simple keyword called swap here. Now observe this, when you run this, then just refresh it here. Now observe this one. Now in employee table how many we have? See this, how many records? 3 records in the employee table. So this assigned to this particular table, and then these details assigned to this particular table. Now observe this employee table we have 8 records and then 5 columns. And then again if you do swap, again if you execute swap again, see this, again it will come to the original thing. Now again it executed. Now if you observe now, so this one 8 records and then 3 records. So anytime if you want to so rename, so from one table to another table, like we have taken a backup table and then So you once you have done the changes and then validation and everything, you need to replace that original table as a back with the backup table. Then so it's a so very so useful keyword. So what we can use a swap option. This swap and then clone. So most of the time, so we will use in our the Snowflake. So what is the advantage of the clone here? So instead of occupying so two times the same storage area, so it will occupy only one time. So it will happen in the back end by using the partitions. This we need to remember. Okay, so I will send these things. So for the practice, just so go ahead and then practice. So then next we will see how
Yeah,
to
Dinesh,
create
can
a
we swap
different.
one database to other database?
We can do that. That is also possible.
So we need to
Database to
mention the
database,
class
schema
dot
to, yeah,
public like that.
exactly.
Mm.
Schema to schema, database to database, table to table, everything we can able to do. Okay,
Mm.
so now, okay, so these are the default roles, right? Whatever we have available. So these things we didn't configure anything. By default, when you created an account, it came, right? Account admin, user admin, system, and then this is the username which we have created automatically. So in the next session, we will see how to create a different user, how to create a different roles, and then how to assign the roles to the specific user, and how to create a data masking policy, so that is related to the security. So we'll see that how to create the roles, how to create a users, and all these things in the next session. So till now, so please practice at least 1 or 2 times. Okay, so any questions here? Let me check it in a chat window. Any questions from anyone? I hope everyone is receiving the recorded sessions and material. If they are missing anyone's names, please let me know. I will ask them to include.
Yeah, I'm receiving that a link. I received a link which covers
Mhm.
this recording videos, but I don't receive any material to refer.
Okay, Sarvan. So I will ask them to send
Mm.
everything.
Okay. We have class this weekend.
No, weekends we don't have class, Sarvan.
Okay,
So next
okay,
class is on Monday.
okay.
Okay. Okay. Happy
So
weekend
that
and happy Christmas.
I can cover this missed classes
Okay.
in this
Fine.
weekend. Yeah. Okay.
Sure,
Thanks.
sure.
And
Please practice.
Dinesh, I also sent you a
Any
note. They
questions?
asked me to remind you. This is Priya here, Dinesh.
Mhm.
I also
Yeah,
sent
Priya.
you a
Tell me.
note. They asked me to remind you about
Mhm.
the notes and video for the closed batch.
Okay,
So
got
I
you.
sent you
Got you,
an
Priya.
email. Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Sure, sure. Okay. I will send it to you. Okay, guys. Happy weekend. Happy Christmas. See you on Monday.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank
Wish
you,
you the
Dinesh.
same.
Thank you,
Thank
Dinesh.
you.
Happy weekend.
Thank you.